I, 28 male, never thought my life would turn out this way. Growing up, I always believed that hard work and loyalty to family would be rewarded. I thought if I did everything my parents asked, I would eventually be in a good place. But looking back, I was just naive. When I was 16, my parents pulled me out of high school to help run the family business. They owned a small but successful restaurant, and they always told me it would be mine one day. They said I needed to start early, to learn everything from the ground up. According to them, school was not as important as real-world experience, and I believed them. At first, I didn't mind. I liked the idea of working alongside my parents, learning the ins and outs of the business. It felt like I was doing something important, something that would secure my future. While my friends were stressing over exams and college applications, I was handling customers, managing inventory, and dealing with suppliers. My parents always said this was my path, and I trusted them because things were going quite well for me. Meanwhile, my younger sister Emily, 26 female, was given a completely different life. She was never asked to work at the restaurant, not even part-time. My parents insisted that her education was the priority. They paid for private tutoring, expensive summer programs, and even covered her rent when she moved away for college. Anytime I asked why she did not have to help out, they gave vague answers about how she needed to focus on school and how I was better suited for the business. Years passed and I kept working. I missed out on normal teenage experiences, no high school graduation, no prom, no college life. My world revolved around the restaurant. I worked long hours, often from morning until night, making sure everything ran smoothly. My parents started relying on me completely. They would take vacations, leaving me in charge. I handled all the major responsibilities while they treated me like just another worker. I literally had no friends and zero social life. By the time Emily graduated from college, I had already spent a decade working at the restaurant. I knew everything about it. I knew which suppliers to avoid, which regular customers needed special treatment, and how to handle difficult situations. I thought it was finally time for my parents to officially pass the business down to me. Then suddenly everything changed as my parents announced that Emily would be taking over the restaurant. They acted like it was the most natural decision in the world. They talked about how proud they were of her, how her business degree made her the perfect candidate. Then they hit me with the worst part. Since I never finished school, I was not qualified to run it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. For 10 years, I had been running the restaurant. I had sacrificed everything for it. Now suddenly, none of that mattered. My parents dismissed all my hard work like it was nothing. They acted like I had just been some unqualified helper, not the person who had kept the place running. Emily, of course, accepted it without hesitation. She did not seem to care that I had been promised this for years. She walked in and started making changes, acting like she had built the business from scratch. She called it modernizing, but all she really did was undo everything I had worked for. I was expected to continue working under her. My parents told me I should be grateful that I still had a job. Emily started treating me like any other employee, giving me orders, micromanaging my work. She barely knew how to run the restaurant, but that did not matter. She had a degree. I did not. I wanted to leave, but I had nowhere to go. I had no savings because everything I earned went back into the restaurant or towards helping my parents. I had no education, no other work experience. This was the only life I knew, and they had taken it away from me. I had spent my entire youth believing that this restaurant would be my future, but in the end, I was just a placeholder. I had built up something for my sister to inherit while I was left with nothing. I walked away from the restaurant that day, feeling empty. I had spent more than a decade building that place, believing it was my future, only to be tossed aside like I did not matter. My parents didn't care about my sacrifices. They only cared about degrees and appearances. Emily had a fancy piece of paper, so in their eyes she was the only one who could run the business. I did not argue or fight, I just left the business. At first I had no idea what to do. I had no formal education, no savings, no backup plan. I spent the first few weeks completely lost, wandering around town, feeling like my entire life had been ripped away. I had given everything to that restaurant, and in return, I was left with nothing. I bounced between low-paying jobs, trying to figure out my next move. Dishwashing, stocking shelves, construction work, anything to keep myself afloat. It was humiliating. I had spent years managing an entire business, handling suppliers, hiring employees, making sure everything ran smoothly. And now I was scraping by doing work that required none of the skills I had built. But I swallowed my pride and kept going. After a few months of working tirelessly, something clicked. If I could run a restaurant for 10 years without any formal training, why wouldn't I do it for myself? I did not have money, but I had experience. I knew suppliers. I knew how to run a kitchen. I knew what made customers happy. Most importantly, I knew what not to do. I had seen firsthand how bad management could destroy a business. I started small. I took out a loan, rented a tiny space in a less popular part of town. It was not fancy, but it was enough to get started. I kept the menu simple, focused on quality, relied on word of mouth instead of flashy marketing. It was just me at first, cooking, cleaning, managing orders. The hours were brutal, but for the first time in my life, I was working for myself. Slowly, the business grew. People loved the food, and word spread. I hired a few employees, then a few more. I reinvested everything into the business, improving the space, expanding the menu, upgrading equipment, and within 2 years I was turning a solid profit. That's when I found the perfect location. It was an old cafe that had gone out of business right in the heart of the shopping district. The rent was high, but the foot traffic was unbeatable. I took a huge risk, secured another loan, and moved in. It paid off. The new location exploded. Lines out the door, reservations booked weeks in advance. I refined everything. Better ingredients, faster service, a sleek but comfortable atmosphere. My place became the spot in town. I finally had something that was mine, something that no one could take away from me. And then out of nowhere, my parents showed up. 4 years had passed since they gave Emily the restaurant. I had no idea what had been happening over there because I had completely cut them off. I did not follow them on social media, didn't ask mutual friends, did not check in. As far as I was concerned, they were out of my life. But the moment they walked through the doors, I knew something was wrong. They looked desperate. Turns out Emily had run the restaurant into the ground. She came in with all these big ideas, trying to make the place trendier, fancier, more modern. She changed the menu, fired the long-time staff, raised prices to match the upscale image she wanted. The regulars who had kept the place alive for years stopped coming. Her new vision did not bring in enough new customers to replace them. Then she started making bad financial decisions, unnecessary renovations, overpriced ingredients, shady marketing schemes that never paid off. Within 2 years, she was in serious debt. By the 3rd year, she was barely breaking even. By the 4th, she was on the verge of bankruptcy. My parents had poured everything into keeping the business afloat, but it was not enough. They were out of money, out of options. They had no choice but to come to me. I let them talk. I let them beg. They told me they had made a mistake, that they should have never pushed me aside, that I was the only one who could save the restaurant. They asked if I could buy it, take over, make it successful again. I could have laughed in their faces, but I did not. Instead, I asked them one question. Did they know who their biggest competitor was? Their faces went pale. For 4 years, they had been losing customers, struggling to stay open. They never realized that the place taking those customers was mine. My restaurant was the reason theirs was failing. The customers they had driven away found their way to me. The employees they had fired ended up working for me. The reputation they had spent years building was now attached to my brand instead of theirs. I watched as the realization hit them. They hadn't just lost their restaurant. They had lost it to me. I had built something better, bigger, more successful, and I had done it without them. They sat there in stunned silence waiting for an answer. I didn't give them one. So, AITA for destroying my own family's business and creating something better than what they had? Update 1. After my parents and Emily came begging for help, I thought that would be the end of it. They had lost their business and I had built something better. I assumed they would finally understand that they had made their choice years ago and now they had to live with it. I was wrong. Emily was not just embarrassed or bitter, she was furious. She couldn't accept that I had succeeded where she had failed. Instead of taking responsibility for what happened to the family restaurant, she decided that I was the reason for its downfall and she made it her mission to destroy what I had built. At first, it was just small things. I started hearing whispers that my restaurant was stealing recipes from my family's business. Some long-time customers mentioned that they had heard my food was not as fresh as it used to be. A few negative reviews popped up online, all strangely worded in the same way, claiming that my restaurant was just a cheap imitation of the original. I ignored it. It was annoying, but I had a strong reputation. My customers knew the truth, and I was not going to waste my time on petty rumors. Then it got worse. Emily started showing up at my restaurant, standing outside, talking to customers as they entered. She told them my business had stolen from her. She said I had ruined the family name, that I had no formal education and was a fraud. She even told people I had stolen employees from her, when in reality she was the one who fired them. She sent messages to food bloggers claiming my restaurant was unsanitary. She posted fake negative reviews, saying they found hair in their food or that our ingredients were spoiled. Some influencers refused to work with me because they thought I was some kind of scam artist. I still tried to stay quiet. I figured people would see through it eventually. I had faith that my work spoke for itself, but then she took it a step further. She filed a lawsuit against us. She claimed that I had intentionally destroyed her business by opening my restaurant, that I had stolen her customer base, and that I owed her financial damages. It was ridiculous. The restaurant had been mine for years before she even touched it. I had built my business from nothing while she had destroyed hers with bad decisions. But my parents backed her up. They swore that I had sabotaged Emily, that I had taken advantage of her struggles, that I had preyed on their loyal customers. It was complete nonsense. I had to hire a lawyer, spend time gathering evidence, and deal with the stress of being dragged into a legal battle I never asked for. I had proof that I had built my business on my own. I had receipts, supplier agreements, customer testimonials. There was no way she could win. The case dragged on for months. During that time, Emily's behavior became more unhinged. She tried to get former employees to turn against me. She sent letters to my landlord, claiming I was running an illegal business. She even tried to talk to the health department to get me investigated. Nothing worked. Every attempt she made to take me down only made her look worse. Eventually, the lawsuit was thrown out. She had no case. I thought that would be the end of it. It was not. After the lawsuit failed, Emily completely lost it. She started harassing my employees, calling suppliers, telling them I was going bankrupt. She even vandalized my restaurant, spray painting insults on the windows in the middle of the night. That was the final straw. I installed security cameras, reported everything to the police, and got a restraining order. Emily had officially ruined whatever little relationship we had left. My parents tried to defend her, saying she was just frustrated and going through a tough time, but I did not care anymore. I told them I was done. No more second chances, no more family loyalty. If they wanted to keep supporting Emily, they could do it without me. Emily lost everything, her business, her reputation, her dignity. She had no one left to blame but herself. As for me, my restaurant is still thriving. I moved on. I kept growing my business, expanding into catering and even opening a second location. People saw through Emily's lies, and in the end, she only made herself look worse. I do not regret anything, but sometimes I wonder, why couldn't they have just been happy for me? Update 2. After everything Emily did, spreading lies, trying to sabotage my restaurant, and even filing a lawsuit against me, I thought she'd finally back off when she lost, but instead she just kept sinking lower. With no business, no job, and a ruined reputation, she had nothing left. She burned bridges with former employees, suppliers, and even some of her own friends. No one wanted to work with her, and she refused to take responsibility for any of it. At first, my parents still defended her. They kept making excuses, saying she just needed time to recover from the stress. But Emily did not try to fix her life. Instead, she continued blaming me for everything. She claimed I had stolen her future, that I had ruined her chances at success, and it was my fault she had nothing left. The thing is, my parents had supported Emily her entire life. They funded her education, gave her the family business, and covered up for her failures. But now they were dealing with the consequences of enabling her for so long. Emily had no backup plan, no experience running a business, and no way to take care of herself. And since she had spent years thinking everything would be handed to her, she was not prepared for what came next. She moved back in with my parents. At first, they were okay with it. They believed she just needed a little time to figure things out, but weeks turned into months. She refused to get a job, claiming she was too good for anything outside the restaurant business. She wouldn't help around the house, expecting my parents to take care of everything like they always had. They started getting frustrated. They had lost their business, their retirement plans had taken a huge hit, and now they were stuck taking care of their fully grown daughter who refused to do anything for herself. The same parents who had ignored me, belittled my efforts, and handed the business to Emily were now realizing that she was not the golden child they thought she was. Their patience started wearing thin. Emily kept demanding money, making excuses about why she couldn't find work. She expected them to cover her expenses, buy her things, and continue treating her like the successful business owner she thought she still was. But my parents weren't making as much money anymore. Without the restaurant, they were struggling too. They had invested everything into the business and into Emily's future, and both of which had completely crumbled. Then one day they had enough. I don't know what exactly pushed them over the edge, but suddenly everything shifted. They stopped defending her. They stopped blaming me. Instead, they started turning their anger towards Emily. I started hearing from relatives that my parents were complaining about how lazy and entitled Emily was. They were tired of taking care of her. They were angry that she had wasted their money and destroyed the restaurant. They were starting to see the truth that had been obvious to me for years. Emily was not a victim. She was the problem. That's when they reached out to me. After years of ignoring me, dismissing my hard work, and choosing Emily over me at every turn, they suddenly wanted to talk. They wanted to fix things. They wanted to move forward as a family. But I knew what they really wanted. They did not miss me. They didn't regret what they had done. They were just desperate. Emily had become too much of a burden for them, and they needed a way out. They saw that I was successful, that I had built something stable, and now that Emily had failed them, they wanted me back in their lives, not because they cared, but because they needed help. For the first time, they were treating me like the successful one, the one who had his life together, the one who had something to offer. But it was not because they suddenly respected me. It was because they had no other choice. They asked to meet up. They wanted to talk about the past. They said they made mistakes, that they wished they had done things differently, but I knew if Emily had been successful, they never would have reached out. I ignored them at first. I was not sure what I wanted to do. Then I heard that they had given Emily an ultimatum. Get a job and start contributing or move out. She lost it. She screamed at them, called them ungrateful, said they owed her for all the stress she had been through. She threw a fit, just like she always did when things didn't go her way. But my parents weren't backing down this time. They were done. For the first time, Emily was facing real consequences. I don't know if she ever found a job. I don't know if she moved out or if my parents caved and let her stay. I don't care enough to find out, because when my parents reached out again, practically begging for a chance to make things right, I finally told them the truth, that they made their choice years ago. Now, they had to live with it. Update 3. Emily was not done causing problems. Even after everything that had happened, she still refused to accept reality. A few months after the last restaurant opening, she reached out. It started with a message, acting like nothing had happened, as if the past didn't exist. She talked about how they should meet, how they could help each other as if they were equals, as if she hadn't spent years trying to tear everything down. The message sat there, unread for days. Then came another, and this time with a tone of entitlement. She claimed that despite their differences, it was time to put everything behind them. She talked about business ideas and the potential of working together. It was laughable. After everything she had done, she actually thought she could just step into the world he had built for himself. Ignoring her did not stop her. The messages kept coming, shifting from polite to demanding. At first, she framed it as an opportunity and then quickly turned bitter. She started saying that the only reason he had success was because of the family restaurant, that he owed her something, that she deserved a piece of what he had built. Reading those words felt ridiculous. The same person who had laughed at his struggles, who had actively tried to ruin him, was now claiming she had a right to his success. It was nothing more than desperation disguised as arrogance. Then came the emails filled with the same nonsense. At first, they were just requests, and then demands, and then accusations. She claimed I had stolen customers from her, that my restaurant had only done well because of what I had learned from the family business. She said that if I had any decency, I would give her a share of what I had built. It was so absurd that it almost felt like a joke. Ignoring her was not enough. A call came from one of the restaurant managers saying that she had shown up at one of the locations and was causing a scene. Upon arrival, she was there, sitting at a table, acting as if she was waiting for an old friend. There was no embarrassment, no shame, just the same smug expression she always had when she thought she had control. She pointed out how well the restaurant was doing, throwing out passive-aggressive comments about money and success. And then, without hesitation, she brought up why she was really there. She needed an investor. She had an idea and wanted funding. She framed it as if it was some golden opportunity, as if she was doing a favor by even offering a chance to be involved. Hearing those words felt surreal. She had spent years trying to destroy everything, and now, when she had nothing left, she expected a handout. She genuinely believed that she could just walk back in, that she was owed something. When it became clear that there would be no investment, no deal, she shifted tactics. She started blaming, accusing, twisting the situation. She said that everything had been stolen from her, that she had been wronged, that none of this would have existed if not for the family business. She said that refusing to help was selfish, that it proved everything she had ever said. Even after all these years, she still had the same mindset. She never took responsibility. She never acknowledged her own failures. It was always someone else's fault. The moment it was clear that she was not going to get what she wanted, the anger started. She claimed there would be regrets, that she wouldn't forget this, but there was nothing left for her to hold over anyone. She had already burned every bridge. She stormed out of the restaurant. The staff watched, confused but unsurprised. It was just another scene, another desperate attempt to regain control over something she had lost long ago. The parents remained silent. They did not try to defend her. They did not try to reach out again. Maybe they had finally realized that nothing would change, that there was no fixing what had already been broken. Emily had once thought she was untouchable, that she could manipulate her way through life, that everything would always work out in her favor, but in the end, she had nothing and there was nothing left to do but move on without her. Update 4. After everything that happened with my parents and Emily, I made a choice. I was done looking back. They had spent years dismissing me, underestimating me, treating me like I was nothing, but I had proven them wrong. I had built something for myself and I was not going to let their mistakes hold me back anymore. So I kept going. I opened another location and then another. It was not easy. Expanding a business always comes with risks, but unlike Emily, I had spent years actually learning the industry. I had built strong relationships with suppliers, staff, and customers. Each new location brought its own challenges, and I met each head-on. I spent long days training managers, ensuring that every restaurant maintained the same quality and service that had made the first one so popular. Slowly, my brand became known not just for good food, but for a warm, welcoming atmosphere that people could trust. As my business grew, so did my reputation. I began receiving recognition in local business circles and even in regional publications. Awards and nominations started coming in. I was invited to speak at business seminars, sharing my story of how I built something from nothing. It was surreal. I had always believed that success was measured by hard work and perseverance, and now I was living proof that it was possible, even if the journey was full of setbacks and betrayals. People started recognizing my name, not just as the owner of a few restaurants, but as someone who had built a real brand. Young entrepreneurs began reaching out to me, asking for advice. At first, I was not sure if I wanted to take on that kind of responsibility. I remembered how I had started with no one willing to help me, no one believing in me. I didn't want others to experience the same hardships that I had faced, so I decided to be the mentor I never had. Meanwhile, my parents and Emily had no choice but to watch from the sidelines. At first, they still tried to reach out. They did not like being ignored, and they hated the fact that I had done everything they told me I couldn't do. My success was a constant reminder of their own failures. I heard from distant relatives that my parents were complaining about how I had abandoned the family, how I was holding a grudge for no reason. Their words stung, but I had long since learned that I did not need their approval. I was building a future that mattered to me. Emily, on the other hand, completely faded from my life. After she was kicked out of my parents' house, she bounced between dead-end jobs and short-lived business ideas that never got off the ground. Her pride would not allow her to take up the kind of work that I had done when I was starting out, and her constant blaming of others left her isolated. I occasionally heard rumors about her latest attempt to start a business, but nothing ever materialized. She became a cautionary tale among our family members, a reminder of what happens when one refuses to learn from past mistakes. I kept my focus on my growth and my goals. I reinvested every bit of profit back into my businesses. Always looking for new opportunities, I started exploring related ventures, catering services, food trucks, even a small line of packaged sauces that was sold in local grocery stores. Each new venture was a learning experience, and with each one, I built up more resilience and knowledge. I became a well-known figure in the local business community, invited to share my story on panels and at community events. The more I succeeded, the more I realized that my worth was not defined by what my parents or Emily thought of me. There were times, though, when I would reflect on the past. I thought about the years I spent working at the restaurant under my parents' constant criticism, how I had sacrificed so many personal milestones along the way. I remembered the dreams I had put on hold and the opportunities I missed because I was always busy trying to prove myself to a family that would never truly appreciate my efforts. But with every success, that old pain grew fainter. I learned that sometimes the best way to move on is to focus on building your own future. It was not just about the money or the accolades. It was about proving to myself that I was capable of so much more than what was forced upon me. I wanted to show that even without the traditional path of education and parental support, determination and hard work could carve out a better life. I had built something from scratch, and with each passing day, my legacy grew stronger. In the end, I have learned that true success is not measured by the approval of others, but by the strength of your own heart and the depth of your own resolve. I have moved on without them, and my journey continues with hope, with determination, and with a legacy that will outshine. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.